I was a child once, a little girl who was fearless, confident, expressive, joyful. And surprisingly, being almost 32 now, I actually do remember being those things. But even with all of those amazing things that I was, somewhere along the way, I was left with unhealed trauma to bring into my adulthood, unhealed trauma to bring into motherhood. So now that I am a woman with a child and I'm navigating it honestly to my own liking in my own way, because I know by now that just because my mother said it didn't make it true, right? So we get older and we realize all of the times that our parents may have lied to us, or we definitely know times where they lied to us, right? Because it was beneficial for them or for whatever reason. We can all remember a time that they intentionally or not have hurt our feelings with something that they've said, right? But deeper than just lying or verbal slip ups or mishaps, some of us actually have real scars from our childhood: physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental scars. Some of us look at our childhood and want nothing more than to be the complete opposite of what we saw and what we were taught, right? But like I said, grown women now, grown women with children now, we're the adults. We know by now that it's very hard to not become what you've seen. It's very hard to not pick up all of the bad habits that were bestowed upon us, right? Because the person who raised us honestly had no idea what they were doing. But they chose to just wing it instead of changing the narrative, right? We're the mommies now, and those children are looking up at us, depending on us fully, the same way we once were. And we want nothing more than to be better than our mothers. Even if they were amazing, we should still want better for our children, because our children definitely deserve that much, right? At the end of the day, they deserve to never have to experience the pain that we experienced, the trauma, the unhealthy communication, the lack of love, the lack of support, the punishment, the defamation, the insecurity. I could go on and on. I mean, people say it's not easy to break generational curses. And as someone who is doing it daily, no, it is not. I agree 100%. It is not. But what I can say is it's worth the work that it takes to do it. It's worth the outcome. It's worth the reward, because what's really the risk? I look at my child and I see someone who I truly want to have a better life than I did. That's what makes it easy, because I am in control of what trauma I create for her, especially during her childhood. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, when she goes off and creates her own path, finds her individuality, there's nothing that I can do with the trauma that she finds herself outside of my home, my arms, whatever. So the least that I can do is shape the way that she sees the world and how she values herself and how she perceives life in a way that has a positive impact on her when she enters adulthood and motherhood. Motherhood, in my opinion, is the ultimate act of rebellion against generational curses. So, mommies, what steps will we take to ensure that we break every chain for our babies? Thank you for tuning in to episode 8 of Mommy Monologues. When the curse breaks, the trauma will fall. This episode is sponsored by none other than Killer Cocktails, the best cocktail curating business around. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at CamBamFam. Click that link on my bio where you can find everything that is Cam, from Mommy Monologues to Killer Cocktails and whatever may have you. And actually, you'll see a couple of other links in that bio, because I was actually nominated for the Rising Star Awards for the Chicago Black Excellence Awards that is taking place June 14th. So if you see those links as well, feel free to just click on it. It takes a couple seconds to just vote for me for the Rising Star Award. Feel free to support me. I'm not sure who nominated me, but shout out to you if you're listening. So now that that's said, let's get into breaking these generational curses. So honestly, I can truly say motherhood has been an incredible journey thus far, right? It's been filled with nothing but joy and love and honestly the fun of the unexpected, okay? But for many of us, it's also a journey of breaking generational curses and shattering chains that have haunted our families for generations, okay? So I remember the day that I found out that I was going to be a mother. Ironically, it was on Mother's Day, but it was a flood of emotions. I felt overwhelmed. I was excited, but I was fearful. I was sure, but I was also swimming in uncertainty. Amidst it all, there was one thing that lingered in my head. It was like, if I did decide to do this, would I be able to break free from the patterns of my own upbringing? Would I be able to raise my child in a way that defied the expectations set by the history that I consider my childhood? Because at the end of the day, motherhood is about choices, right? It's about making conscious decisions every single day to be better, to do better for the sake of our children and for the sake of ourselves, right? So it's about breaking free because those generational curses, they put a restraint on us. They hold the past over our heads, telling us that what was done right. That's it, and that's all. Which is why it's tough to break generational curses, because it's literally looking your loved ones in the face and saying, you all were wrong. I'm changing the narrative. I love you still. Do not judge me for not being like you. Point blank, period. It wasn't long after finding out that I could possibly be a mom, and then of course deciding that I would actually be a mom, that I made a promise to myself. I wanted to break the cycle. It was just that simple. And I didn't have a terrible childhood, but there were things that did stick with me that I knew that I did not want my child to experience. I chose to rewrite my own narrative. I wanted to change the pattern that existed long before I did. The control, the judgment, the emotional blockage. Those were just some of the things that I just refused to bring into motherhood with me. They were already in my adulthood. I already struggled with relationships because of emotional blockage. I struggled with control because of insecurity due to judgment. I struggled with a lot. So I wasn't willing to bring that with me into motherhood too. It had already taken up a lot of space in my adult life. I wanted my child to experience something different. I wanted her to grow up speaking on my name with pride, period. But breaking generational curses is not easy. It requires courage, strength, and resilience. Because when you start to break those curses and the ones who raised you are watching you and seeing what you're doing, oh, they're going to have so much to say. And you got to just take it with a grain of salt and just keep doing what you know is best for you and best for your child. You sometimes will have to tell them, like, so you really think that that was the best way to go about things? You really look at your children and feel like they turned out the best that they could? And sometimes you will have to say that, but most times just let it roll off because they don't know any better. At the end of the day, what I'm speaking of right now is how it's so hard to unlearn, because at the end of the day, breaking generational curses is unlearning those bad habits, that bad behavior that was bestowed upon you, all you've seen. That's not easy at all. Regardless of how bad you want to do it, it's not easy. It takes a long time to break a bad habit. They say 21 days, cool, but imagine 21 years of a bad habit. How long do you think it's going to take to break that? It's not going to happen overnight. So there are days when the weight of the past will feel almost unbearable, right? Doubt's going to creep in. It's going to feel like we're only as good as the mistakes that they made. We'll have moments of frustration where we feel like our moms. We'll have moments where we're like, am I even good enough to really be this child's mother? Or am I just going to repeat the same mistakes that my mother did? And am I just going to mirror all the things that my mother did, even though I know how it made me feel? Am I just going to pass that along to my child? No, not if you can help it. Not if you really don't want to. You really have to put in the work. Not always easy, always worth it. Okay. So what are some ways that we can begin to break the generational curses that fight so hard to keep living through our mothering skills? Self-awareness and reflection is first and foremost. We can literally break generational curses by taking the time to reflect on our own upbringing. We need to identify the patterns, identify the behaviors that we want to change, and consciously decide to choose a different path for ourselves and our children. It's important that we are honest with ourselves about how our childhood and early adulthood impacted us as we try to navigate not just motherhood, but adulthood as a whole. Because we must be honest about what our parents did and didn't do, how they made us feel, and in which areas they dropped the ball. It's easy when you don't have a relationship with them. But when you still are maintaining a good relationship with them, despite all of that, it's harder to identify what they didn't do right. It's hard to see them from that angle. So honesty really is the best policy in this case. When it comes to starting the process of breaking those curses and removing those barriers, honesty is the best policy. Support and therapy. Support and therapy. The village. Therapy, support and therapy. I don't know how much I can talk about this. It's so essential for mothers, especially new mothers. And I won't even put a highlight on new mothers because all mothers go through something at a different time. I feel like all mothers might go through the same thing at different times. But at the end of the day, it's essential for us to seek the support from therapists, support groups, trusted friends, and family members so we can work through any unresolved trauma. We want to identify those negative patterns that we've inherited from the generations before us. I cannot talk about the village enough because at the end of the day, those support groups, those friends that you call, those people that you chat with in the forum, even though you've never met them a day in your life, your therapist, yes, that is your village. Remember what I said in my village episode. Your village is whatever it looks like for you. Long as they're supporting you and not judging you, they can be a part of your village. Therapy provides tools. We all know that. It gives you a different insight to navigate motherhood with greater self-awareness and a greater sense of resilience. But therapy is not accessible to to everyone. We know that, right? So aside from that, read books, read those self-help books, read those books about motherhood, join those forums, y'all. I joined so many different Facebook groups in regards to motherhood and just womanhood period too. But motherhood for real, and sometimes I just read. I don't even talk a lot in there because sometimes I don't have to. Sometimes I go on there and a mom is literally posting about something she's experiencing that I'm literally experiencing. And I read those comments and I get all the advice I need without saying a ting. Without even having to speak on my situation, I've gotten feedback for my situation and I feel lighter and I can take the advice of a mom who doesn't even know that she just gave me great advice and move forward in motherhood, okay? So, like I said, join those conversations. So many other mommies like you fighting the same fight, experiencing the same traumas. Click up, cry together, okay? Open up to your friends. If you are actually surrounding yourself with people whom you not only trust to bring into your safe space, but you trust them to create a safe space for you if need be, there should be no fear of being open. No fear of being honest about your struggles. No fear or shame in your past. In that same breath, though, also they're supportive enough to never pressure you to open up. They understand that it's all at your own pace. Even if you open up a little, they don't keep trying to pry because they know, like, hey, everyone has trauma. And at the end of the day, we all process and heal differently. And sometimes someone might just not want to share that with you right now or ever. Another thing that's very important to me when it comes to acknowledging the person whose curses you're breaking, okay? Be extremely verbal with your family about how they can foster open communication with and for you. Let them know the importance, especially how important it is to you specifically. Let them know the importance of creating a safe and open environment for communication within the family. Because as mothers, it allows us to address and challenge the harmful beliefs and behaviors that were passed down to us with no judgment. Doesn't have to be an argument. We don't have to hate each other after this. I can teach you something through unlearning what you were taught. And in the relationship that we can now foster, trickles down to relationship that you can now foster with my child. And no, you don't get to make up for your motherhood through my child, but you kind of do, because you're doing it through me first. You know? I don't know if that makes any sense. It does to me. Encouraging honest conversations about emotions, boundaries, and expectations can help break down barriers and foster healthier relationships. Giving them the opportunity to correct themselves opens the door for us to either heal through their changed behavior or heal realizing that their presence is no longer healthy. So I say that to say, sometimes you will approach the person who bestowed these curses upon you, and they will not be happy that you feel that way about the way that they parented or raised you. Some people won't be as open to finding out that they did not do everything right. So be aware of that. Be aware that sometimes healing comes from realizing, oh, I did all that I could, and you no longer deserve space in my life. And move forward. And I don't say that like it's just going to be whatever, but eventually it will, because you'll realize that it's for the betterment of you and your child. It's for the betterment of how you're nurturing motherhood. You don't need anyone around who feels like they can tell you that your experience is wrong. Okay? So, lead by example. At the end of the day, and the beginning, we know that mothers play a very, very influential role and crucial role in modeling the positive behaviors and values for our children. We're the monkeys, and so are they. We do, they see, they do. Repeat. That's it. By demonstrating resilience, empathy, and self-care for them, we as mothers can literally break generational cycles of dysfunction. We can literally break generational cycles of dysfunction by demonstrating resilience, empathy, and self-care. We inspire them to prioritize mental and emotional well-being because that's what they see us do. The way that our parents should have prioritized it. The way that we're doing now, because we realize that that's what they should have done. And instead of us just saying, well, this is what I know. That's the same as someone saying, well, this is how I am. No. We got to change the narrative. We cannot just, this is the way I am, our way through life anymore. I don't know if we ever could. Obviously, we thought we could, and this is how we ended up here. So it's time to change the narrative now. It's time to say, oh, that may have worked for you back then, but it's not going to work for me now, in this day, in this time, in this age. This is not the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. Change the narrative. And don't be afraid to change the narrative, because that shows them how to healthily navigate relationships with everyone around them. We teach them the importance of fostering and nurturing those said relationships. So the same way that we picked up on the negative habits that were put on display for us, we can take the time to unlearn those habits through motherhood and put on display the positive habits, so that those are the ones that our children remember when they're faced with adversity. My ultimate favorite: create new family traditions. Create new family traditions. Literally compartmentalize after you've healed. Forget about those holidays that went bad, those birthdays that they forgot, forget about all of that and create new traditions with your child, okay? Intentionally creating new family traditions and rituals that promote love, promote respect, promote connection, that can literally help break away from negative patterns of the past, okay? Whether it's weekly, family dinners. You may not be able to do it every night, but on Friday nights, everybody's at the table. We're talking about our week, what happened, what went on. Meaningful holiday celebrations, never forgetting a birthday. Like, for instance, Easter's coming up. It's my baby's favorite holiday. I go out every year. I go out every year. I go crazy out since the day she was born. And mind you, my baby was born in January. So when her first Easter rolled around, it's probably why she loves it so much. Because when that first one rolled around, baby, she had baskets, eggs, candy she couldn't eat. It was just like, I just loved creating my own traditions with her. It helped me feel like we were just bonding. Like we were creating our own memories, things that when she's older, I'll know she'll be like, my mom did this with me and I'm going to do it with my kids. That's what is important to me. Traditions that can strengthen our family bond and reinforce positive values for her generation and the ones to come. I bond with her a lot through self-care. She gets her hair done. I do her nails. I give her spa days. I take her shopping. She gets jewelry. We have movie nights, open conversations. I openly speak to her about her experiences socially, her experiences with me. I make sure she knows how loved she is. But not just loved, I make sure she knows how much I value having her in my life because she didn't choose to be here. She deserves the life that I had and then some. So if I got it, my daughter has it twice. Period. My inner child is smiling often because of the things that I choose to do for and with my baby. If you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted the other day, I said, my baby has me cutting her shirts up now so that they're more stylish, in her words. And my inner child is literally jumping up and down for joy every time I cut a shirt because it's just like the creativity the space that I allow her to be creative is a space that I wish that I had. It's a space that I had to force. And knowing that I just give it to her and she doesn't have to force it, that makes my inner child just smile. Because, wow, you're changing things. You're changing things. I couldn't be happier. And I let her be a child. And as much as people say, you're not your children's friends, I am. I am her friend, and I'm her first friend, and I'm going to be that friend forever where she knows that she can come to me, always lean on me for support, always trust me to show up, always, and trust me to never judge. And judgment is really one of the curses that I'm really trying to break, that I had to experience. Never judging my daughter for her mistakes or her shortcomings, ever. Using that energy to figure it out and make her better. That's it. I was judged a lot. And I don't think that it was intentionally at all. I don't think that it was to harm me, to hurt my feelings. I just think that it was simply the way that my mother was raised and she didn't get the chance to unlearn it. That's just what I think. The way we treat our children, we know that directly impacts the way that they treat others. So much so, I just had a situation with my baby at her school where it's a little girl that's pretty much being a bully. For those who know or don't know, whatever, just a quick description. My baby is a love child. I love her down, okay? She doesn't get whoopings. She's not a fighter. She's not volatile. Like, she don't have that attitude. She's sassy. But she doesn't have that, like, what? So there was a little girl that's, really being a little bit too handsy, putting her hands on her, a little too aggressive, a little too whatever, right? And the first thing that I thought about when my baby told me was, this is what I get. That was my first thought. And it was like, this is what I get. And then the next thought was like, girl, that don't even make sense. Because it was like, this is what I get for loving on my child in a way where she doesn't want to defend herself. She does not feel the need to put herself in that space because she doesn't see that from me. And that's me going on to say the way we treat our children. So I immediately got sad for the other child because here it is. My child is 7. My child's 5. She just transferred to the kindergarten class. Here it is. She's telling me that this girl has hit her so hard that her arm hurts. Like, she's hurting. And my child has been in her share of whatever scuffles or whatever, and never has she ever expressed it in that fashion. I immediately felt bad for the child at home because you're 5 years. How do you even know, like, to be so, like, to hit is one thing, because my child knows to hit. Because my child even said it. She's like, I was trying to, like, hit her back, but I'm knowing my child's version of hit back. How do you even know the power to put behind to want to hurt someone? So I immediately thought about that child's household, her upbringing, and felt sad. Because like I was saying, the way we treat our children directly impacts the way that they treat others. So the judgment that was, placed on me, the emotional blockage, the all of that, I didn't want to be that way towards anyone, let alone my child. So I had to break that curse before motherhood. But that made it so much easier to teach that to her, because I realized how important it was for me to break that cycle way before her, right? Our children are a literal reflection of us. How they act, it is literally defined by how we teach them it's okay to act, how we tell them to act, how we let them get away with acting. We have to start shaping them so early on. It's not even funny. As soon as they start really not even talking, as soon as they start understanding what you're saying, you need to be telling them all of the right things, nothing less. They're a reflection of us when they're with us and when they're not. But more importantly, they are a reflection of us even when they look at themselves. So, who do you want to be looking back at them? And that brings me to today's Mommy's Mirror. I didn't have a terrible childhood, okay? But I do have some terrible trauma as a result of my childhood. I'll say that again. I didn't have a terrible childhood, but I do have some terrible trauma as a result of my childhood. Now, you probably hearing that and like, girl, how can you have a terrible childhood, not have a terrible childhood, but have terrible trauma? Because not all my experiences were bad, okay? Healing is what allowed me to be able to separate the two. Healing was what allowed me to be able to realize that even though I had a terrible childhood, even though I didn't have a terrible childhood, I still had trauma. I still had terrible experiences, but that did not define my childhood. But motherhood is what allowed me to never accept the two. Never accept the two. I never accepted having terrible trauma. Like once I realized and pinpointed, I never allowed myself to just accept it. I accept what happened to me because it happened, but I will never accept that it was okay. And I will never accept that my daughter has to experience the things that I did just because it's life or just because it's my first time being a mom. I knew that when I chose her. And she deserves me at my best. Was I loved? Yes. Was I supported? Sometimes. Was I also judged? Yes. Was I shunned? Sometimes. And those are the things that parents think we don't hold on to in reality, especially if it wasn't a constant or a consistent thing. But as we come into adulthood, they're actually the things that we remember most. And don't get me wrong, we remember the toys and the trips. We remember the love. We remember all of that too. But nothing sticks out to us more than the pain that has shaped us. Nothing sticks out to us more than the pain that has shaped us. The reason we can't express our feelings, or the reasons we don't necessarily love our bodies, whatever it may be. Nothing about breaking curses has been easy. And if you're just getting started, nothing about it will be easy. Let me be the first person to tell you. Nothing about it will be easy, but it will be worth it every single step of the way. When something happens that triggers you because it reminds you of something traumatic from your childhood, and you take that extra moment to change the narrative and respond in a way that you wish you would have been responded to, you're one step closer to breaking the chain. When your child looks at you with that sparkle in their eye after they do something bad, I'm getting emotional. After they do something bad because you didn't yell or hit them, instead you checked on them first and made sure that they were okay, you're one step closer to breaking the chain. And don't expect perfection. Because at the end of the day, there will be days when frustrations arise, and those frustrations that are even aside from our children, frustrations that may not have anything to do with them, they're going to creep in and they're going to try to take over. And sometimes we will fall short because only human at the end of the day. In my 5 years of being a mom, I have had my fair share of those days of falling short. Do you hear me? Especially single motherhood. Moments when I questioned whether or not I was even capable of being a mother, a good mother to this child, being the mother that she deserved because she did not ask to be here. Then I look at her and I would literally see hope. Looking at her would instill confidence in me, endless possibilities for her future. And I saw the chance to rewrite that history and shape her life in a way that I would be proud of, but she would be happy with. I look at my baby and I see myself, because motherhood is not about being perfect. And I hope that we understand that we can never make it about being perfect. So please don't make that your goal. Please don't make yourself think that one day you'll be this perfect mom, because it'll never happen. Perfection does not exist, and motherhood is not about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about showing up every day, consciously deciding to show up every day, to do better, to be better, to change the way we speak to them, to change the way that we acknowledge them, to talk to them, to open our hearts to them fully. All of that comes with being present, not perfect. Our children are not looking for us to be perfect. They're not. They accept us more than anybody else. Them and God are probably on like the same playing field when it comes to accepting you for who you are. Never will it be perfect. Show up day in, day out. Show up when it hurts. Show up when you're tired. Show up when you don't even know which way up is. Show up. Even when you stumble and fall. Get back up, dust yourself off, and try again. Aaliyah was really, really on to something. She was really on to something, okay? It's about teaching our children resilience, integrity, compassion, and the importance of forgiveness, okay? Because at the end of the day, breaking generational curses doesn't come with not forgiving those who bestowed those curses upon you. Oh, we got to forgive them because it's not directly their fault, okay? Yes, they had a choice, a chance to change it, but we are living through the fact that it's not easy. We're living proof that it's not easy. So let's not blame. Let's give more grace to our elders who did their best, okay? Teach them the importance of love, the importance of empathy. But most vital, teach our children, mommies. Let's teach our children the importance of not accepting it, whatever it is. Not accepting it just because it's given to you by someone you love, okay? I'll say that again. Let's teach our children the importance of not accepting it just because it's given to you by someone you love. And we are included in that someone you love. Raise them to know that they deserve the best from everyone who decides to be a part of their life. Period. Nowhere around it, except nothing less than the utmost love and respect, because you got the utmost love and respect for yourself. And can't nobody give you anything less than what you're giving yourself. All the mommies that are listening right now, out here treading the sparkling waters of motherhood while grappling with the ghost of the past, I'm saying this to you. I'm saying this to you, mommy. I'm saying this to you. You're not alone. You're stronger than you realize, and you're capable of breaking free from the chains that bind you. Together, we can rewrite the narrative. We can break the cycle. Let's create legacies of love, strength, and empowerment for future generations to come. Because that is the true essence of motherhood. The power we embody as women goes beyond just bearing the child. We also hold the power to shape the future, one changed behavior at a time. You got me. I've got us. We got each other. And let's just remember, when we wake up every day and decide to be the best mommies that we can be, breaking generational curses is one of the best gifts that we can give our children. And that is Mommy's Mirror. Ooh, I got a little emotional today. Goodness. Thank you all so much for tuning in to episode 8. I can't believe it's been 2 months already. Episode 8 of Mommy Monologues. When the curse breaks, the trauma will fall. As I always say, those who can relate, please like, share, comment, and tap in. And those who can't, please send it to someone who can. I'll see y'all next week. I gotta go be a mom.